Welcome back to the Healthy Skin Coach Show. I'm your host, Takashi, helping you get clear skin and preaching to the world why food is the ultimate medicine. Today, I have a really special guest. His name is Dr. Mahmoud Ghannoum, and he has an incredible career as one of the world's leading microbiome researchers and the author of The Total Gut Balance. He's published over 400 research papers and has been cited over 20,000 times. He's also received over $50 million in grant funding from the National Institute of Health to further his research. And he's the founder of BIOHM, the first company to engineer premier products and tests that address the total microbiome. Thank you so much for joining the podcast and helping humanity understand the microbiome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure. I was looking very much forward to talking to you because not many people talk about the skin, and this is really an important area which I would love also to talk to you about.
Yep. As the Healthy Skin Coach, I primarily focus on the gut because most people focus wrongly on the skin when actually the problem lies within the gut. And so when I saw your resume and your career and your accomplishments, I had to have Dr. Ghannoum on my show.
Thank you very much. You are kind. Thank you very much.
Let's first get started with your background and what inspired you to research the gut microbiome.
You know, I am professor at Case Western Reserve University and University Hospitals in Cleveland, Ohio. And I've been studying microbes for all my career, like over 40 years. You know, I am an old man in it. And when I first started I would tell you 1973, 74, I went to England to do my doctorate. And the first paper my mentor gave me was a rabbit which was treated with antibiotics. And guess what happened? It killed all the good bacteria and the bad bacteria as well. And as a result, they developed issues with fungal infections. So, and then I knew then really it's very important to look at what microbes in our gut and how we can influence them. And ever since I've been looking into this area. So if we go fast forward in I would say late 99, late 90s, beginning of the 2000 and some, people start to go more into new technologies, and they did the deep sequencing, and then they start characterizing the microbes in our gut and our skin. And as you know, they call it microbiome, which means organisms that live in our body, not only in the gut, but in the skin, in the oral cavity. So that was exciting, and I was attracted to it. And one thing which I noticed is a lot of people, when they talk about microbiome, they only talk about bacteria. And then because of my background, I said, no, we really also need to look at both bacteria and fungus. And that's how I started my journey looking into the microbiome in HIV-infected patients, Crohn's disease patients, and recently skin as well.
When people are suffering from acne, doctors prescribe them antibiotics to try to kill off the P. acnes bacteria, but that also kills off all the healthy bacteria. And when I was on antibiotics, I was constipated for like a week because my digestive system was so messed up, and it destroyed my gut. So I had to repopulate it with healthy bacteria using probiotics and eating the right foods like vegetables and fruits. In your opinion, do you think antibiotics will ever be phased out in the future in order to promote the healthy bacteria in the gut?
You know, we need to put this into perspective. Like, for example, if you have an infection, you really need to get rid of it, okay? And you have to go sometimes into antibiotics. The problem is people sometimes, they don't feel well, and they say, like, for example, they have a flu, the influenza, and then, you know, antibiotics will not treat it, yet people go and start using antibiotics. So we really need to be judicious and careful on when do we take antibiotic, because we want to get rid of the infection, but at the same time, we don't need to kill all the good microbes as well. So from that point of view, we need to wean ourselves of, let's take a pill of antibiotics to keep everything under control from infection, you know? So that's really very, very important. At the same time, even if you take antibiotics, as you said, if we take care of our gut, we can repopulate with good microbes. And I tell you an example. There was a study, especially since you mentioned acne, and what they found that people who took probiotics, especially ones that contain bifidobacterium, guess what? They improved their acne. So there is now, we know, well established, a relationship between the gut, the skin, and the brain. And that's really where the gut, taking care of your gut, is gonna reflect well in your skin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I take this skin probiotic called Skinessa, and it has Bifidobacterium lactis, longum, and Lactobacillus casei and rhamnosus that have been proven in clinical studies to reduce the SCORAD index, which is the scoring for atopic dermatitis. So the scientists found that they improved eczema conditions on patients. And so, and that's why I take it and recommend it to people. Well, what are your thoughts on using a targeted probiotic like this for the skin?
I really think there are certain probiotics that you absolutely, what you are saying, target certain conditions. That's why when we, for example, designed our BIOHM probiotic, what we did, we wanted to design it so that we can get rid of the pathogenic microbes, like microbes that cause disease, and they work together to cause issues. And to do that, we selected a number of strains. And really, just to stress the point how we selected it, by targeting, we looked at what is the correlation analysis. How do they correlate together? If one goes up, does the other one go down? In other words, do they antagonize each other? Or if one goes up and the other goes up, they work together. Based on this, we designed a probiotic that has Bifidobacterium brevi, Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, but we added also a yeast called Saccharomyces boulardii. And this Saccharomyces boulardii is very good because not only it will support the good bacteria, but also it can keep the bad fungus under control. Mm-hmm. So targeting probiotic, as you said, is really a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Are there any strains that can directly kill off the Staph aureus bacteria that for eczema patients, there are colonies of staph on their skin, and it's hard to kill them off with just normal means?
Yes, I mean, there are studies done where it shows that some streptococcus, strep, for example, epidermidis, is a good bacteria, which seems to antagonize the Staph aureus, okay? And so, yes, definitely there are certain antibiotic strains which you really need to, once you identify them, you need to go and what to do is do studies show that you are, for example, you want to inhibit Staph aureus, you need to show that it can inhibit that bacteria, you know, especially MRSA, methicillin resistant staph, for example. So, and that's where is the nice thing about the science. We are getting to be more informed. We are guided by our data better than just, you know, a whim and what you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always say that food is the ultimate medicine in reducing inflammation, and drugs like steroid creams are not the answer because all they're doing is inhibiting phospholipase A2, which downregulates arachidonic acid and then downregulates leukotrienes and prostaglandins. But that process occurs because there's an outside stimulus, usually due to a food due to an inflammatory food that we are eating. What are your opinions on changing our diets in order to reduce that stimulus that causes inflammation in the body?
I really think you have the right idea about this, that look, we don't have to take a pill for everything. If we can manage our diet, for example, what we want, like the book which I wrote, Total Gut Balance, which was published just before Christmas. And what we looked at, we wanted to have food ingredients that can support the good organisms, others that can inhibit the bad ones, but also we need to have some food that have anti-inflammatory. For example, cruciferous fruits, vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables, they have a lot of anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. So by nurturing your gut, you really don't need all these steroids and the other stuff, because as you know, not only they are not very helpful to our system, what they do, you will laugh at this. You know, I did my doctorate in the 70s looking at the effect of steroids on fungus.
Wow.
So if you take these anti-inflammatory steroids, they really can cause havoc in your system. So it's much better if you follow the approach, let's look after our gut, let's select the right food and nourish the good bugs or friendly bacteria and fungus and get rid of the bad one. The other thing which is important, not only the diet, but also lifestyle. You know, it's very important for us to combine that. In our book, we say it's not enough the diet. The diet is very important component, but let's look at, for example, exercise. I know it's nothing new. People say, oh, you should exercise and this sort of thing. But really, studies have shown if you have moderate exercise, you don't have to really be extreme, training, for example. It showed that it change the microbiome towards the better. Okay, that's one example. The other example, one big thing, which is especially these days with the COVID-19, the stress and anxiety. You know, we are all stressed out. And even before this, we know that stress could really cause havoc in the microbes in your gut because of the gut-brain axis, you know? And that's why if you are stressed, and we really, and even normal life, as I mentioned, pre-COVID-19, we all work very hard, we're all running about helping, and if you have children, you have family, you need to look after them. You really need to take time for yourself to try to reduce some of the stress. You need to have, for example, do some yoga, do some meditation. That really will be very, very important.
I always say that stress can cause chronic inflammation in the body because your sympathetic nervous system turns on cortisol and it just kind of doesn't turn off because it's on overdrive. And so your body's constantly producing cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And this inflammation just can trigger so many medical conditions to pop up.
Oh, absolutely. You really have a good handle on this, that's exactly how we talk about the gut-brain axis because of cortisol and other, factors, which like cytokines, for example, which you mentioned earlier. If you have, like nowadays, we hear about cytokine storms because they really cause a lot of inflammation and damage to our tissue, So it's very important to try to reduce stress. I can tell you a story. We had a lady, part of the BIOHM healthcare, which we had the company. We do also gut testing. People send us their fecal sample. We analyze both bacteria and fungus, and we see is there a difference between them. Normal people, we have profiles of normal, what you may call normal, and then you compare a person gut to that. And we had a lady, she come, when we did this analysis, we found that her microbiome profile really was out of whack, okay? So we also send them a questionnaire. We know what they eat, what they do. And when we looked at the food she is eating, she was eating fantastic food. It didn't make sense. And then, of course, we looked at the stress level. It was way out there. That's why we recommended, listen, you really need to meditate. You really need to take during the day, maybe 10, 15 minutes, relax, close your eyes, because we are all so busy, our mind all the time going. So that will help you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And in the latest research, as stress directly kills you by shortening the telomeres length on your chromosomes, which is a biomarker for aging. And when I learned about that, I'm like, wow, I have to manage my stress every single day. So I do breathing techniques in the morning, following the Wim Hof method. And I also do cold showers, which can help relieve some of that inflammation. And yeah, breathing helps to activate the vagus nerve and just lowers the blood pressure and can help subside all that inflammation that's being built up.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you are absolutely right about that. And that's why, like in the morning, I tell you, I wake up early in the morning. I'm an early riser, okay? In the evening, I'm so tired. But I wake up 5 o'clock in the morning. I go, I do a little bit of stretching. I do a little bit of, like because I go to yoga at the weekends, I do a little bit of those yoga movement, which relax me. But then I have an elliptical machine, which I really like because it does not put a lot of pressure on my knees and this sort of thing. So I do half an hour, and then that's it for the day. I am really very ready to face the day. So it relaxes me, it exercises my body, and it set me up for the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for me, I do a jog around the neighborhood with my shirt off to get sunlight and get vitamin D, because over 90% of Americans are vitamin D deficient or insufficient. And it's crazy because it's such an important vitamin at reducing inflammation and keeping your body healthy.
So you can imagine we come from Cleveland, which is cold, and we don't have as many sun as you in LA. So we really have to do that. That's why sometimes I recommend to people that they should take vitamin D. Especially there are studies where we showed, and others, that some people have imbalance and they have an increase in protobacteria. It's a phylum of bacteria. And this phylum is a red flag for inflammation. And guess what? We said to bring this down, you need to do two things, apart from stress and sleep and this sort of thing. Number one, you should take more fiber, because fiber is gonna feed the good microbes in your gut, okay? Number two, you need to take vitamin D, especially vitamin D3. That's where you have ability to fight this protobacteria, which is the pro-inflammatory microorganism.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, you are one of the leading doctor microbiomes out there, and I'm curious about your diet. What foods are you currently eating?
I really, I come from Lebanon in the Mediterranean, so I'm used to eating really vegetables, fruits. So what we recommend, or what I eat myself, in the morning, I like to have oatmeal, steel cut oatmeal, and I like to add berries to it, or raisins and this sort of thing. So, and that's really very good because that's good food. It has resistant starch for the microbes. In the weekend, in the morning, I have egg, I have also berries. So that's what I do in breakfast. But then around, let's say, 10 o'clock in the morning, I get a little bit hungry. I take some snack, and I love to take nuts. I take a lot. You can see here, pistachio. I love to have pistachio. So I take pistachio. And then at lunchtime, I usually take lentil soup. I love lentil soup. And also all these beans have a lot of, really beneficial, not just vitamins and other good components, but also fibers as well, And I take salad. I love salad. You know, I don't like salad with too many components. I like, for example, tomatoes, cucumber, lettuce, spring onion, and, you know, some garlic and olive oil. Of course, olive oil. I love olive oil. In the evening, I love to eat fish. Okay, so I love salmon. Whatever type of fish, I really love it. And also, we do sometimes in the oven vegetables, you know, roast vegetables. All types of roast vegetables are really, really lovely. So that's what I do in general during the day.
Hmm. Yeah, I also love salmon, and I've been obsessed with balancing my omega-3, omega-6 ratios to ideally be
Yes.
1 to 1 and to optimize my health. Because when I learned that omega-6s can upregulate prostaglandins, which when you have too much leads to cancer and heart disease and all these medical conditions, then I'm like, okay, I have to balance it out with omega-3s. So I sell some on my website for all the trillions of listeners and viewers out there. But do you do any fasting?
You know, I really don't do any fasting. When I was growing up, I used to do fasting. You know, fasting, I think it is good. In what way? Because it regulates your body. You can control how much food you eat, and also you feel much better. Sort of, you relax your microbiota. The problem is some people, they fast, but then when they want to break the fast, they eat so much food. You know, so you need to control it. Like intermittent fasting, people are talking about a lot these days. I think it's good, but you need to also, you cannot just say, look, have intermittent fasting and go eat fast food, for example, you know, after that. So in a way, I think you can have fasting, but you have to have with it whole food, natural food, you know, food that are low in saturated fats, for example. All of this, you need to do that. The other thing which I like about food is to try to, for example, take apple cider vinegar. You know why? Because apple cider vinegar have been shown to break the biofilm or the digestive plaque which we have in our gut. You know, we all have plaque in our teeth. We brush our teeth. We cannot brush our gut, but these organisms, the bad ones, they come, they make this biofilm. It will be very difficult to, they affect your absorption of food. They affect your, you know, damage the gut lining as well. And that's why, for example, in the probiotic which we developed, the BIOHM probiotic, we selected because it is able to break these biofilms and allow you to have better absorption of vitamin C, for example, and as well as we did casein study. So we published that work. So I try to stick to wholesome food, good oil, like especially as I mentioned, the what you call the olive oil. Garlic is another favorite of mine. Garlic is very, very important. And actually, I published about 3 papers long time ago to show that garlic can kill the fungus, the candida, for example. You know, so that's how I like. And of course, you put some lemon and this sort of thing. So all in all, it becomes lovely salad. Or of course, with the fish, having lemon is very, very important. I always squeeze a nice lemon.
Mm-hmm. And to add on that, apple cider vinegar helps strengthen the acidity of the stomach, which can help the digestive enzymes. And people with low stomach acid can have leaky gut, which can
Yes.
cause all sorts of inflammation inside the body, which can result in so many medical conditions. My question to you is, we know the beneficial of these acidic drinks that can help with the stomach acid, but what about alkaline water? Do you think the alkaline properties negate the acidity of the stomach, which can ultimately do more harm than good?
Yeah. You know, I really think one thing about the stomach acidity, you have it very high acidic conditions like pH of 1 or 1.5, you know, which means it's very low pH, which is an indicator of acidity. However, when you eat like 30 minutes after the pH increases, becomes 4 to 6, which means become less acidic. I don't like to take things to try to interfere, like alkaline water and this sort of thing. I don't think it helps these things. Let's use normal way of what we do, the food we eat, try to have, as we mentioned, the good wholesome food, much better than taking all this water, which is, I mean, why do you want the acidity in our stomach? It has a function. Why do you want to neutralize it so much? And I don't know, I really don't know how effective is that as well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always thought that was just pure marketing, and people are making millions off the marketing, and there's no science backing alkaline waters. And I was also looking into the oral microbiome and how mouthwash is too acidic for our teeth, so it can dissolve the tooth enamel, which can ultimately destroy our teeth in the long run. And what helps remineralize teeth is actually more alkaline environments. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I really think I agree with you. It is not good to have too much acidic because of our enamel. Like, for example, even apple cider vinegar, because it's acidic, don't try to take it neat, just try to add it into a salad or something. So it does not make sense that we put an acid which we know already breaks down, because what happens, bacteria in our mouth, when it is acidic, that's what it does. It breaks and affect our enamel, So definitely that's not a good way to do that.
Mm-hmm. What research are you doing currently that's really exciting for you?
Okay, I really thank you for asking this question, because at the moment we just did a study on autistic kids. Okay, what we did a study. We looked at the microbiome profile, both bacteria and fungus, in autistic kids, and we compared it to their siblings who are living in the same household. And we really were able to characterize what are the difference between the two. And what we are doing now in BIOHM, we are hoping to use that to find sort of strains of probiotic or strains of good bacteria and good fungus that is able to rebalance the gut of autistic kids. And it's so interesting, because as I'm doing this research, you have nearly 50% of kids with autism, they have issues in their gut, gut disturbances and really symptoms. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do now, is can we identify, based on our characterization of the profile, how can we rebalance and maintain the gut of these kids? At least we can help them with respect to their GI or gastrointestinal issues. Mm-hmm. So this is the exciting thing I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm. And in my previous podcast, I've spoken with many moms whose kids experienced symptoms because of gut issues. And it's important to know that moms pass on their microbiome to the child through the birth canal. So if the moms have an imbalance in the gut, then the child also can have an imbalance as well. And with C-sections, the kids actually share the microbiome of the hospital environment, which can have all sorts of negative consequences down the road.
Sure, I agree with you. It's very important that the exposure of the new baby when he's being born, if you go through the birth canal and the mom has good microbiome, it's going to help them. Also, if you have C-section, it's not really as healthy. And that's why now there are some people where they take some microbiome of the vagina and wipe it in the kids, so that the baby who was born with C-section, to help them in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's very, very important.
Mm-hmm. And it's really important for the listeners and viewers out there that you have to start optimizing your health and your gut starting today, because there's so many long-term consequences when you don't start optimizing today.
I absolutely agree with you. And the best example I tell people, is that, look, our gut is like our garden, okay? The garden, when you want to have nice roses, you have to feed them, take care of them, yet at the same time, we need to get rid of the weeds. So it is in your hand, like as you said, to really encourage the growth of these roses, the lovely, beautiful, with nice smell, and get rid of the bad bacteria, which are, and bad fungus, which are the weeds, okay? So this is absolutely in your hand. To me, I think the diet, the lifestyle, all will help you. And in a way, it's gonna help prevent diseases, okay? Which is really much better than we getting sick and we get treatment and this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So taking care of your gut is gonna help you in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. I was curious, what conditions allow Candida to grow in the gut, which is a harmful fungus?
First, I just want to put this into perspective, and then I'll tell you about the condition. Candida could be present in 50% of the people, but at low level, like the abundance of it, the amount of it is very low. If it is low, it's fine. Why? In a way, it's beneficial. It helps us to break down food, which become food for the good bacteria to grow, so it is good. The problem starts when it overgrows, okay? And what makes it overgrow? From the diet point of view, sugar. It loves sugar. So all these sweets we eat, all this pure sugar, purified sugar, refined, is not a good idea. What you need to do is what we've been talking about. Let's have good proteins from plants, from fish, from poultry. This will really keep Candida under control, okay? Also, avoid to have these sugars, as I mentioned, because that is a bad news.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. What are some advice you can give to up-and-coming doctors who are studying the microbiome?
I think this is a really very exciting area. I think we really, I encourage people to go into it because the science now shows that it can affect a number of diseases and conditions, you know. So it's an exciting area. If you want to go into it, you are lucky to start now because we already accumulated a lot of the information about the microbiome. We still have to find more, but at least we know what organisms are there. We know what they do. They cause diabetes, they cause depression, they cause all sorts, like autism, for example. They play a role of that. So now you are coming into an area where you can find ways to treat it, ways to rebalance it. So it is really exciting area to go into. And I really believe it's gonna change the way we practice medicine as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And especially right now, people are more focused on health more than ever. And I've been saying that you should start optimizing your health today in order to boost your immune system so that you can, help fight off the coronavirus were you to ever get it. And a lot of people have too much inflammation inside the body and too many cytokines, which can lead to cytokine storms that are actually killing the patient. The virus itself really isn't killing people. It's the body's response to the virus and how the organs start shutting down because there's too much inflammation that's killing them. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I really absolutely agree with you. And that's why I did a little bit of short video trying to say, look, immunity is very important for us. So nowadays, especially even with anxiety, with all this situation we live in, we have a lot of inflammation. So you really need to take care of your immune status. And one of the ways to do it is through the gut. So for example, there are some probiotics with vitamin C also, which, as you know, it works very well against inflammation. So we need to remember, by having a strong immune system, we are able to keep the microbes that cause disease under control. So that's why what you said is absolutely right. Let's eat the right stuff. that have anti-inflammatory, that have antioxidant. So we are able to stop this cytokine release because that's where the damage occurred to our tissues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I really got into researching cytokines when I suffered from severe eczema last year. And I was looking into current eczema drugs like Dupixent, which blocks interleukin 4 and 13. So which switched the isotype of the immunoglobulin to immunoglobulin E, which is responsible for allergic reactions in the skin. And I was experiencing that in the form of eczema. And so that's why I started researching all I can about inflammatory cytokines and anti-inflammatory cytokines. And so many people just have no idea that what they're eating is releasing all these inflammatory cytokines. And one of the biggest one is tumor necrosis factor. And the best-selling drug in the world called Humira, all it does is block TNF. And you could do that by not eating inflammatory foods, but people don't know that.
I really agree. You know, one other research area which I'm really interested is psoriasis and atopic dermatitis, because again, the microbes in our skin can also cause this reaction in these autoimmune diseases like psoriasis, for example. And what we found, we characterized actually the microbiome of the skin in affected areas in the skin with psoriatic, like where people have lesions, versus unaffected. And we showed that one of the organisms you mentioned, the staph, for example, is increased, as well as a fungus called Alternaria was also increased. So they work together, they make this biofilm, which really cause issues. So having a right balance of the microbes is gonna help your anti-inflammatory effort and hopefully improve all this immune issues that we have.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And on my website, I actually sell almond oil, which helps preserve the natural acidic barrier of the skin, which can help kill off the Staph aureus bacteria. And almond oil has really powerful anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. That's why I want to help people understand that they need to use the right products in order to rebalance their skin microbiome. And most people use all these products from the stores, which are super alkaline, and that actually messes up the natural skin microbiome and allows Staph aureus to grow in their optimal pH level of around 7. So yeah, people just don't understand, and that's why I'm trying to help them understand.
No, you are doing a great job. You are doing a great job. And really, this is very important information to let people be aware, because that's going to help them in the long term, as you say, improve their skin, as well as their overall health when they fix their gut microbiome.
What is the future of BIOHM in 2 or 3 years?
I think, first of all, BIOHM is going to continue to help produce, develop product that is going to address certain conditions. For example, I tell you how. Part of our gut testing, we are collecting so much data from people. It's like 23andMe, you know? And with that, we have people with different conditions, and now we are able to profile them and see, for this disease, ulcerative colitis, for example, this is the profile. And then we are now digging into how can we rebalance this? And that's where I think we are hoping in the coming 3 to 4, 5 years, we will have a product at least for autism. I think the other thing which we are looking into, sometimes cancer, colorectal cancer, and also we are very interested in the gut issues. So we are hoping that by collecting all this data, we will be able to, of course, maybe partner with a big strategic partner, because, you know, these studies, when you go into clinical trials and whatever, it becomes expensive. But the beauty is we have the basis for starting to address a number of diseases, and that's where we are going in BIOHM.
Awesome, awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Now, I really just want to thank you, and I really enjoyed it. I love what I am doing, and if your listeners want to do something, please look after your gut, eat the right thing, and you are going to be very well in your way to having a good health. And finally, if you need more information, please visit drmicrobiome.com, drmicrobiome.com. We are providing a lot of information there for people to help them in balancing their gut microbiome.
Awesome. For the trillions of listeners and viewers out there, please visit his site at drmicrobiome.com and get your gut microbiome or probiotic today. All right. Thank you for joining the podcast. Stay safe and stay healthy. As always, Taco is out.
Taco. Bye-bye.